Hello, everybody. Welcome. This is the Aravosis Report with John Aravosis, coming to you live from Chicago for the next 6 weeks. Woo, man, the dogs are coming in and out. We've got two dogs again now that I got mom's dog and my dog. So very exciting. Oh, man. All right, I'm ready. It's always weird changing venues and having to get everything set up and different microphone and the whole deal. But I think we're copacetic. I'm about to start on the TikTokers. I will tell mom hi because it's almost a guarantee that mom will walk in at some point. That's kind of a guarantee when they're 93 years old. They have to come in. She knows what I'm doing, but oh my. All right. I am ready for this. It's very strange shifting venues. It's always a little bit harder, at least for the first few days when I switch over. It's like there's just more things I'm like, for example, I've got my ugly glasses. My nicer glasses are upstairs, but I was already late for the show, so I figured forget it. For you, you get the ugly glasses. Oh, all right. Woo, it's warm in here too, man. Well, this house is like either hot or cold. Anyway, all right. I am ready to start. I don't like to show ma. I've been doing politics for so many years that it's a little creepy to show mom because too many nasty people out there. So I kind of decided a ways ago to do that. All right, let me get started on TikTok here on my iPad, of course. One moment. There we go. Let me turn my show. Boom. All righty. Oop, hello. What the heck was that? Oh, God, I hate when they do that. All right. There we go. Hello, Carol. Hello, Cindy. Oh, was just getting things set up a little slowly here. Oh, stretch my back. Got my script. Very exciting. Hello, Rowan. I was a little late. Yes, I'm in Chicago, so it took me another minute to kind of get myself set up here. Hello, Alex in Berlin. Oh, hello, everybody. Yeah, well, we're waiting for folks. You know how this works on TikTok, actually. Usually the TikTokers, you guys fly in like in 30 seconds. It's like, wow. So maybe start saying where you guys are from. And when I see that TikTok number hit around 750, I will start my intro, which will be momentarily. Hey, Pete in London. Oh, boy. Man. American living in Moscow. Yikes. Okay, that's got to be interesting nowadays. I don't know. I'm not sure about that. Oh, thank you, Joe, for those. Ooh, it is warm in here today. Oof, I'm showing off one of my new purchases. I practice what I preach. I bought one of these shirts designed by young Ukrainian girl. Oh, but we'll show more of those later. All right, guys. I'm ready to start. We got about 900 TikTokers. Hello, TikTok. Hello, everybody else. This is the Aravosis Report. I am John Aravosis. This is my daily show where we talk about all things Ukraine. I review what's happened in the war in the last 24 hours. Since today is Monday, it's going to be what happened over the weekend and today. Basically, the way the show works is maybe 20, 25 minutes. I will talk to you about the latest news, what I think is important. And then there's at least second half of the show will be question and answer or even comment. I'm happy to have you guys weigh in. Give me your suggestion, give me what you think is going on, because a lot of you, frankly, have even more background than I do in some of these areas. On TikTok, feel free to leave your questions in the Q&A link that you will find in my profile. For the rest of you, go to the comment box and leave it there. The most important thing you guys can do to help me, because I am independent media, nobody is paying me to do this. Literally, the only income I earn from doing this is the income from you guys, from the auctions, from this, on the media with you guys. So if you can contribute, I'd appreciate it. Honestly, the best way you can help me is free. Just click the follow button on TikTok, follow me on YouTube and everywhere else. Best way you can help. Second best way, keep the gifts coming. The super chat questions, super stickers, and the gifts on TikTok, just like Allie did right there with the origami. Thank you, guys. All right, let me get rolling. So, news today. So, Russia continues to hit the civilian infrastructure in Ukraine. It seems pretty clear. I'm going to turn up I can actually put my YouTube or my volume up on TikTok now. So when you guys do gifts, I can actually hear them, I hope. But yeah, it's been, the Russians are basically still, so I'm hitting my silence on my phone too. The Russians continue to bomb the Ukrainian infrastructure. It is an ongoing problem. It is clearly their number one goal. And it's got me very worried. And I say worried in the sense that I'm not sure what NATO's plan is here. I mean, Zelensky gave a speech tonight about freedom, and he talked back to the Maidan protests. Thank you, Big Hawk. When back in early 2014, I guess, was it? Thank you for that, L. 2014, when the Ukrainians basically the people, it was a people's revolution. Thank you, Annie, where they overthrew the corrupt, maybe not dictatorship, but corrupt Moscow-focused government. And Zelensky gave a great speech, and actually I saw an interview as well. There was a really neat interview today. Thank you, Sparky. There was a really neat interview today or yesterday on video of a Ukrainian man, and he's from Kherson in eastern Ukraine. Okay, not Kherson, I'm from Kharkiv area, eastern Ukraine. Oh, and I've got because I'm in Chicago, I didn't want to bring my map with, so I brought the different map. This is my second T-shirt map. You'll notice it's a little imperfect on the side, but this is how we show you guys where things are. So Kharkiv over here in the northeast of Ukraine, second largest city. In general, eastern Ukraine is Russian speaking. This is the excuse that Russia has used for a lot of its war, claiming that, you see, the Russian speakers are oppressed because they really want to be Russian and all this kind of garbage. And honestly, that's a bit like saying, somebody living in America who happens to speak Spanish because they're an immigrant, wants to be Mexican. Well, no, they came to America. And it's even more so. It's even less of an example like that, because when you start talking about Eastern Ukraine, these guys are generations of speaking Russian. It's not like they're immigrants from Russia. Maybe going back forever they are. But you're talking about people who that just happens to be the language of the region. Well, this man gets interviewed and he says, I'm a Russian speaker. I've traveled all over Russia. It was really an amazing interview. He goes, I've traveled all over Russia. He said, I never loved the Russians, which is very interesting. He goes, I speak Russian because I've traveled a lot there, because I've never loved them. But he goes, but I've traveled the country a lot. Thank you for that. He says, but now I hate them because of the war. And to me, it's so interesting. I mean, twofold things going on here. One, how interesting it is, the generation of, and actually, let me see if I can find this picture, the generational change in terms of what people have gone through now in Ukraine, and how they have created an entire generations of Ukrainians who hate the Russians now, right? There may have been some who didn't like the Russians, some who had an affinity with the Russians, but now you've created this hatred across the board. There was this amazing photo, and some of you are going to know it's this. Oh my God, here. This is a Ukrainian boy from Kherson. Kherson is the town right here. This is the area right north of the river here. Actually, I can show you better here than in DC. I can get closer. North of the river here is the area that the Ukrainians liberated in the last week or so. Big deal that they liberated it. The region is called Kherson. The capital city is also called Kherson. So it's the capital city the Ukrainians liberated and the area north of the river. Well, this little boy I'm about to show you is from Kherson, the city that was just liberated. It's been under Russian occupation for 8 months. Basically, let's this up, okay? This boy survived Russian occupation. The photo is from Hungarian photographer Andras Hadju. I want you to look. I'm going to show each of you close up. Look at this boy's face. And this is a young boy. Look at this boy's face. Living through 8 months of occupation. Check this out. Yep, got mine. He looks like an old man. He looks like an angry, but also kind of dead in the eye. Yeah, I was going to say old and bitter, hardened, rough looking. It almost reminds me of those old pictures of children like 100 years ago working in the coal mines or whatever it was. Look at this and think about, I'm almost thinking like in old England or old America when you had like child labor. I'm sure it's not just in our two countries that they had them, but these are sort of the photos I think of, and you think of this as being like a young kid who lived through hell. But the thing that worries me is we are clearly the Russian strategy is they can't win the war. I mean, they know they can't win the war. They can't win militarily. Okay. So what they're doing is they're trying to destroy all the electricity, all the heating, all the water for people across Ukraine. And they are hoping that it will put enough pressure on the Ukrainians where eventually the government has no choice but to say, okay, we're going to have to agree to end the war somehow with Russia because this is all going so badly. Now, again, there was another interview I saw with a Ukrainian man that was kind of amazing. And he was just from Kherson as well, the town that just got liberated, the city that just got liberated. And he said, and I'm going to paraphrase, but he said, I retweeted it on my account. Hold on, I'm going to tell you again. I always like to sort of get these exactly right if I can find them, because it was just today that I found that I saw this and tweeted it. Hang on a sec. But I thought it was just so kind of beautiful and poetic what this guy had said. Yeah, that's the other guy. This is the guy who said he didn't have a great opinion of Russians to start with, and now he hates them. Eastern Ukrainian, speaks Russian, spoken Russian all his life. Now, the other one, hang on a sec here, see if I can find this. I'm probably not going to find it. Basically, I totally thought I distracted. What the guy was saying was, he was saying that, look, we don't have heating, we don't have electricity, we don't have water. And he said, we don't have any of this. He goes, we're going to freeze this winter. I don't know how I'm going to feed my family, he said, but we have freedom because they had been liberated and he no longer was living under a Russian dictatorship. And it's really, it's interesting because what that made me think of was there was a joke when I was living in Argentina. Hey, Alex, thank you for the hat. I was living in Argentina. I was doing a graduate school internship. And I was working for the U.S. Embassy in Argentina. And this was now 1980, summer of 88, maybe summer of 87, something like that. Military dictatorship was gone, new democracy, but the economy was out of control. Inflation was out of control. I mean, prices were jumping. Prices could double in a day. I mean, they were crazy what the prices were, right? Sorry, little ready news. And there was a joke in the paper, and it was two people looking at the elevator because they kept having elevator outages because they kept having power outages, right? And the problem with a power outage is it can happen and you're in an elevator and then you're screwed, right? Thank you, Marcy. You're stuck in the elevator for hours. And the cartoon was showing two Argentines. And I think they were standing in an elevator and the elevator stopped and the lights are out. And you see just like a bubble of the one say to the other. And all he says is, but at least we have democracy. And in Argentina's case, it was a joke because the argument was then that the economic situation was so bad that the idea of, hey, at least we have democracy was basically the punchline of a joke, meaning what use is democracy if you can't even get the power running? And what's interesting is the flip side that you're seeing in Ukraine right now, where people are saying that it's the actual freedom that is more important to them than power, than food, than water at this point. Very interesting, just very interesting. I think it's really, let's see if it stays that way, right? But we'll see. Just to reset, I am John Aravosis. You're watching the Aravosis Report. This is my nightly show, Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Normally, I broadcast from Washington, D.C. Tonight, and actually for the next 6 weeks till New Year's, I'm going to be in Chicago visiting Mom, which is why we have the fabulous wood paneling, Chicago homes going back to the early 1900s. Let me, just tell you really quick again, please do follow me on TikTok. Please do follow me on YouTube and everywhere else. Oh, hello, dog. The best way you can help me is just by following me on these services. So thank you for that. Ukraine announced, this was interesting, a small little point here, but very interesting. Ukraine announced that an operation is underway to liberate the Kinburn Spit in Mykolaiv Oblast. I'm going to show you on the map in a second. One of the last parts of that region to be held by the Russians. this is interesting to me, okay? Now, to remind you again, the big victory of the last couple of weeks when the Ukrainians, threw off the Russians from this region in the south, okay? The region is Kherson, the big region's here. The big battle that the Ukrainians won, at least the initial big battle, but actually it was a big battle and it was very embarrassing for the Russians, was kicking the Russians out of this north of the river region of Kherson right here, okay? Kicking them south. Now, the northern part, north of the river, is now free. What the Ukrainians are now fight. Hello. All right, I'll cover my dog. My dog is here with me. This time, because I'm using a different mic, you probably could hear that one. People never believe me. That was my dog. Whenever she's not covered up, she wants you to cover her up with a blanket or something. As soon as she goes, so what the Ukrainians are doing now is they're doing an operation south of the river, which is interesting. Basically, this little spit that's sticking out here is what they're liberating right now. It's the last little bit of this region that is still controlled, or almost the last little bit, by the Russians. But what's interesting to me is this is south of the river. And so far, the Ukrainians have been north of the river here, kicked all the Russians out. But starting the battle south of the river means they now have a foothold that they can potentially, or if they win this region, they have a foothold that they can potentially start pushing the Russians back this way without having to cross the river. Because crossing the river is obviously very dangerous because the Russians are all built up on the south side of the river with artillery and all that kind of stuff. So that was kind of an interesting little thing that I saw. Polish prosecutors are saying that they're not going to allow the Ukrainians to join the investigation of that missile that exploded in Poland a couple days ago. Kind of weird, though I do kind of get it. The Ukrainians, you may recall, the Ukrainians have been saying for a while that they believe the missile was Russian, meaning it came from Russia. The Poles, NATO, US all said strong indications that it's Ukraine, but they're going to do the investigation first. The Ukrainians demanded to be part of the investigation. They did let the Ukrainians, the Poles, come check out the site. But now, as of today, the Poles are saying they're not going to let the Ukrainians be part of the investigation. Now, at first, that sounded a little obnoxious. And then I thought about it, and I was like, if you're doing an investigation as to whether this missile came from Ukraine or from Russia, you don't want either Russia or Ukraine, touching the evidence, because then it's tainted evidence, right? So actually, it really does make sense to me that the Ukrainians shouldn't be part of the investigation, investigating whether this came from Ukraine. Now, again, NATO has already said it's not Ukraine's fault. This is not Ukraine's fault. So that's not a problem. But in any case, just thought I'd mention it because at first it bothered me. And then when I thought about it, I thought, it's better for Ukraine this way, because what if the investigation actually does find that there's Russian involvement somehow here, right? That somehow maybe it was a Russian missile and a Ukrainian missile. You want the Ukrainians out of it so that that verdict can stand on its own. Germany is giving Poland a related story here. Germany is giving Poland Patriot missiles to add to its defenses on the Polish border with Ukraine. Poland already has Patriot missiles defending itself, but most of them are around key airports and things like that. So the Germans are going to be giving them some of these missiles, U.S. missile batteries, very famous from Israel using them in the Middle East during the first Gulf War, like all the way back in the 1990s, when Saddam Hussein was basically shooting those Scud missiles over at Israel. And the Patriots are basically very good anti-missile batteries. So that's what they're going to use that for. Quick reset again. I am John Aravosis. You're watching the Aravosis Report. I am doing a nightly show I've been doing since the invasion of Ukraine, Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, U.S., where I summarize the news from Ukraine, and then I do a question and answer and or comment period for you guys to weigh in. You can submit comments in the Q&A box in my profile on TikTok, and you can submit them via the comment box on YouTube and everywhere else. I do have a Patreon set up. Please do check it out. It is patreon.com/Aravosis. You can use it to get VIP status on my Discord, but also you can simply use it just to help support my work, and I would appreciate it. $5 a month would help me a lot. I'm doing this for free. It's your guys' literally the money I'm making off of you guys is how I'm supporting myself. So I would really appreciate it. Patreon.com/Erevosis. Now, this is a very disturbing story that the Russians and the Iranians have reportedly reached a deal to produce more of these unmanned drones thank you, Inspired. I appreciate that. I was going to say, do keep the gifts coming on TikTok and YouTube. I forgot to even say that. So thank you for sending that along. Moscow's quietly reached an agreement with Tehran to begin manufacturing hundreds of unmanned weaponized aircraft. Now, unmanned, I'm reading this from a story here. Unmanned weaponized aircraft means the unmanned drones that the Ukrainians have been the Russians have been using to blow up the Ukrainian infrastructure, right? They've been using cruise missiles and things, but they've especially been using these unmanned drones that have a bomb, a small bomb charge in them, but just enough that it's able to blow up a factory, start it on fire, things like this, and also using it to attack buildings of civilian buildings as well. I mean, these are civilian buildings, but I mean civilian apartment buildings, condos, things like this. There is now an agreement between Iran and Russia for these drones to be produced on Russian soil, which will potentially help the Russians produce that many more of them. And the crazy part about this story is supposedly the Iranians thought if they help the Russians make the drones on Russian soil, it won't be a violation of the sanctions that Iran has been facing all this time, going back years now. Kind of crazy because I can't imagine that anybody who, especially the Europeans, but America too, that was going to sanction Iran would say, well, since if you give these drones to Russia, you're violating the sanctions and you're helping the bad guys in the war. But if you help Russia build the weapons in Russia, somehow that's okay, right? I mean, I don't know legally if they're gonna be able to pull that off. Thank you, C. But I think they're going to have a hard time arguing that in terms of just the parliaments of those countries. I think so. I hope so. Russia. This is getting interesting too on the oil front here. Okay, the European Union has a sanctions on oil from Russia that finally kick in December 5th. So a week and a half from now, almost 2 weeks from now, maybe, and. The sanctions were put off, right? They passed them a while ago, but they were put off in order to give the European governments time to basically get ready and maybe wean themselves off of Russian oil, try to find alternatives to providing the oil. Well, what Bloomberg found was that Russia has already lost more than 90% of its market in the European Union's northern countries. Previously, the mainstay. Oh, this was interesting. Previously, these countries in the north were the mainstay of shipments from the Baltic and Arctic terminals for the Russians. So this is a big deal in terms of how much the Russians are losing. That takes us to a second topic, the oil cap. Now, I finally, after all this time, found a good explanation of what this whole issue of the oil caps are. Now, you may have heard months ago that I think this might have actually been Janet Yellen's idea over at the U.S. Treasury Secretary. I'm not sure if it was her idea, but I thought it was hers. And the idea was that the allies would get together and agree on a maximum price that they would pay for Russian oil. And it never kind of made sense to me. I was like, but how does that actually work? I don't get it. The idea was to not cut off Russian oil entirely around the world, but to cut the amount of profit Russia could be making, okay? And this was oil that anybody paid around the world. So check this out. I finally found the explanation in Bloomberg today. The G7 nations, which are the top economies, top democratic economies of the world, including US and Europe, the G7 nations are expected to announce the level of their price cap, meaning exactly how much it's going to be. Thank you, Andrew. In other words, will it be $50, $60 on Russian crude shipments as soon as Wednesday? So in 2 days, listen to how it works. Cargoes purchased at prices above that level. So anybody who purchases Russian oil at a price above the level that the EU and America and Canada set will lose access to European and British ships, insurance, and other services. Now, the last thing I want to see is that just applying to Europe and North America, or is that applying to the world and saying anybody who buys, and I'm thinking it's the world, anybody who buys Russian oil at a price that is, I think they may come up with $60, $65 a barrel, who knows? But anybody who buys at a price higher than that will no longer be able to use British or European ships overall, but they also lose access to the insurance and other services. And if you lose access to the insurance, you could be in a lot of trouble. Mom's dog is still here. Yes. She's sleeping underneath. At some point when the crazy person, by the way, on TikTok, when the crazy person puts that weird warning, somebody grab a screen capture of it next time before you block them, if you would. Just grab a picture of it and then block them and send it to me, because I want to send it to TikTok. No, somebody's impersonating TikTok, and my guess is, here you go, TikTok community guidelines 4. Yeah. No, I'm very glad how fast you guys are. I just saw it. But no, somebody keeps coming on TikTok and they're impersonating TikTok and pretending they're telling us you better end the show in 5 minutes, and it's total fraud. But I'm guessing TikTok isn't going to be very happy about that. Yeah, I wouldn't, by the way, they shouldn't be muted. They should be blocked. Sorry, but Cindy, I'm just noticing, why does it say they're muted? Anyway, see what you can do. I don't know whether you guys have an option between muting and blocking, but if you do, somebody like that should be blocked. They shouldn't be muted, obviously. All right, let me keep going here. So I can show you. So the shirt I'm wearing, very exciting. We've got a store set up of Ukrainian themed items. This is a t-shirt designed by a young Ukrainian girl, a young Ukrainian boy, I think. Actually, no, this is Vladislav. Oh, this is a boy. Vladislav. It's a boy. Yeah. This t-shirt, and this one is this like Ukrainian girl, but with the Spring Fest, with what the fire, but it looks like wings and the Ukrainian flag. But I'm selling a lot of different kinds of things. Actually, I brought down my other shirts because I ended up buying four more of the shirts because I figured I might as well practice what I preach. And I just wanted to show you guys because we're continuing the news, but it's store.aravosis.com. This is kind of a fun one based on the Wendy designed this one based on that story about the Ukrainian grandma who threw a can of pickles and took down a Russian drone. And I love that one. She designed it. I mean, she designed it and drew the entire thing herself. This is just a straight up Ukrainian, the straight up Ukrainian thing. But again, would look kind of cool under a sweater. And the other one, which is an inside joke. It's an inside joke making fun of all the trolls we get here on TikTok, especially because the Russian trolls come and first their English is always wrong. That's the first thing. And it's always wrong. The spelling's wrong. But then they always try to throw in words like dude and bruh, like brother, dude and bruh. and they just, it's obvious they're not Americans. But so finally we had Wendy designed this one too. And it says Russia is losing, dude, because they always say losing instead of losing, which cracks me up. And so then we wrote dude. They do get dude correctly, but it still made us. So this is the Russia's losing, dude. And again, kind of fun because you can wear these with, kind of wear them with your black sweaters. And it's kind of like nice winter. Ends up being a cool winter. Like I'm wearing, this is a short sleeve shirt, but Mom's house is just warm enough that it ends up being like a good thing. So go to store.aravosis.com and you can find my store. All right, let me keep going. And please keep the gifts coming. Thank you on TikTok and on YouTube and everywhere else. And please do follow. Click to follow. We got more news coming. So the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant was under attack again this weekend. Nice shirt, brah. Okay, that was very funny. Thank you, Sparky. Johnny Prince Charlie, that was very funny. That one you get kudos for. He wrote, nice shirt, bruh. That was very funny. Yeah, the Vatnik. I know. I don't even know if I can get away with using terms like Vatnik on TikTok, maybe. Zaporizhzhia. So the nuclear plant, the region of Zaporizhzhia, more or less here, okay? I'm going to fudge the borders a little bit. The capital city, Zaporizhzhia, is up here. Zaporizhzhia, the capital city, is free. The region itself, 50, 60%, I'm not sure the exact number, occupied by the Russians. The nuclear plant is up here. Yeah, it's up here on the point. You see how the river kind of goes up and down. The nuclear plant is up here right at the point here, right across from, what is it, Nikopol. The nuclear plant is occupied by the Russians, Ukrainian nuclear plant. And the Russians have been basically bombing it for months now. There's been a lot of concern, obviously, by the nuclear authorities. Hello, dog. But the nuclear authorities. And there was just more bombing this weekend. I mean, more of the Russian military just hitting it again. Fortunately, there was nothing serious. There was nothing serious, but it was still, not a good thing. The Washington Post, this was a weird story. This is a weird story. The Washington Post says today that the Kremlin, meaning putting on my chapstick, being in Chicago, the Kremlin said today that its goal is not regime change in Ukraine. Regime change meaning changing the president, getting rid of Zelensky and putting in their own puppet. Now, it's weird. They said this because earlier, listen to this, Russian lawmaker Konstantin Kosachev told a government-owned newspaper that the normalization of relations between Moscow and Kyiv could happen only after a change of power in Kyiv. And Putin's spokesman, Dmitry Peskov, came out and denied it and said that's not their goal. Now, these guys lie. I mean, they lie left and right. I still find it very interesting that the Russians felt it was important enough for them to lie and sound like they don't want to overthrow the regime, overthrow Zelensky, when the Russians said from day one that was one of their goals. I mean, that was one of their goals. That one of the reasons they came in was they claimed, remember, you guys remember this, when they came in, they claimed that Ukraine was run by, NZs, try not to use the word so we don't run afoul of the filters, by NZs, and that Zelensky himself was an NZ. And then everyone came out and said, well, actually, Zelensky is Jewish. His grandfather fought in World War II against the NZs, and 3 of the grandfather's siblings were killed by the NZs. Right? So Zelensky's about as far away from you can get from being an NZ, but they claimed that they were going to overthrow him because he was an NZ and he hated Russians and all this kind of garbage. Now they're claiming, so bottom line here, obviously they're lying, but it's interesting to me that the Russians felt the need to lie, that they felt the need to put out some kind of a more sympathetic picture of themselves as not wanting to overthrow the government. That's just interesting to me. I'm not sure who they think they're sucking up to, but because none of us believe them, but it's interesting. A couple more stories here. Oh no. Okay. I've got one more story, but I copied a lot of it. This was really interesting from the Washington Post. There's a Washington Post story today about Russian military families of, soldiers, usually their wives, who are just increasingly livid with the Putin government, Putin himself, I'll show you a quote on that later, but with the government, because their family members were sent to Russia, as we know, with no experience, no training. One guy in the story, again, no training at all, no background in the military. He was drafted on September 26th, and on September 29th, they sent him to the front in Ukraine. But imagine, no background in the military and no training. They literally pick you up and throw you over there. Okay. I mean, horrific, absolutely horrific. I mean, so listen to this. The families, actually, I'll tell you what one family said, but then the reason why it's important is because in Afghanistan, at least, which is interesting, the families were so upset at the dead and the wounded and how badly the war was going. The Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, 1981, lasted, 9 years. I mean, how long did it last? 9 years, 9 years. And it was so 14,500 Russians died over 10 years. Okay. That was considered so much. And mind you, a lot more were wounded. That was considered so high a number. and people were so upset at how the war was going that they ended up, the war helped bring down the Soviet government. I mean, it's considered that big of an impact of geopolitically of what it did. So when you start to see the families speaking out, 79. Thank you. You're right. It wasn't 1981. You know what? I'm mixing my dates. I know it was 79 because it was under Carter. I'm thinking of Reagan, of Reagan being 1981. Yeah, it was 79. So it was 10 years. So it was. I know people always say 10 years, and I kept going, wait a minute. Yeah, thank you for that. Sorry about that musing. I should know that. So let me read you now from the story, okay? Yana, a transport worker from St. Petersburg, was a fervent pro-war patriot until her partner was mobilized. In a phone interview, now mind you, she's doing a phone interview with the Washington Post. This is what's really remarkable. These people can get into a lot of trouble. Their loved ones who are fighting can get into a lot of trouble, okay? By doing interviews, by speaking out publicly. This is a dictatorship. But for this woman to be speaking to the American media is astounding, okay? So continue. Yana, a transport worker from St. Petersburg, was a fervent pro-war patriot until her partner was mobilized. In a phone interview, Yana confirmed video accounts by other military spouses that the men had to buy their own warm uniforms, so they didn't even have winter uniforms, and boots, no boots, and had little training. In Ukraine, once they got to Ukraine, they were given no food or water. They put these guys in Ukraine, and there was no access to food or water for the troops at all. You're on your own at this point. Insane. It goes on. They did not have any orders, and they did not have any tasks, she said. I spoke to my husband yesterday, and he said that they have no clue what to do. They were just abandoned, and they have lost all trust, all faith in the authorities. They dropped them there. Again, no food, no water. Dropped them there, didn't give them orders, didn't tell them what to do. They just literally dropped them and said, you're on your own. You're on your own. Now, what this actually sounds to me like is you hear about one of the things that kind of amazed me that I didn't really realize, but they were saying during the war that the Russian big military exercises they do, that we always used to think were such big deals, right? They were big military exercises and all the Russian troops on display and oh my God, right? Well, they actually weren't exercises. They were acting. They were shows. These guys were all given their parts and they were told what to do, but they actually weren't, like, I don't know enough of how the military works, but literally they weren't learning. I mean, like, for example, we'll do military exercises with NATO troops. And the idea is getting these countries comfortable working together and all this kind of thing, right? What the Russians were doing was putting on a performance and everybody was just told what to do that day, but they didn't learn anything else. They didn't know their jobs, okay? And that's what this reminds me of. And what they were saying was also the military funding. Remember how they said that that the military was they would get a lot, however much money for the Russian military, and they would just pretend to give the money for the thing. They would tell the higher up, oh yeah, I spent the money on the guns you wanted or whatever, but they really didn't, right? Or oh, there was this war even about a month or two ago. A Russian general goes to, I think it was Belgorod, which, by the way, on my handy dandy map, Belgorod is a city right across the Ukrainian border right over here. So it's about 25 miles from the Ukrainian border right here. It's strategically very important city because a lot of the Russian logistics, oil, ammunition, etc., comes through here and goes into eastern Ukraine where the Russians are fighting, right? The general shows up, and the guys did interviews saying this. The general shows up and everybody's fighting, practicing with their guns, The only time they got to practice with their guns, I mean, literally, there was no target practice, learning the gun, nothing, was when the general showed up. They wanted to show the general all the training the boys were getting. So they gave them guns, gave them a couple bullets and said, shoot your bullets. And they went, burp, burp, burp. The general left, no more bullets, no more training. That's what this reminds me of, is the whole thing where basically, as long as they can say they dropped 100, 200, 1,000, 3,000, right? I mean, to add up the numbers of these men, I was going to say young men, but they're not even young, men in Ukraine at the front, they can wipe their hands of it because all they have to say is, oh, no, they're there. So Putin can say, oh, there's another 50,000 Russian men at the front, right? Really, I mean, really just horrific. Anyway, last point from this woman, and then we'll get to the question and answer. She says she fears for her husband's life, but says she does not blame Putin, quote, because he is a smart person. Right? And in the end, what was it? Winston Smith? Or Winston Smith, is that the name? Loved Big Brother. I mean, you read this and you're like, because he's a smart person, we don't hold Putin accountable. Now, she could be a smart person who finally realized, like, okay, I'm willing to speak out, but I draw the line at criticizing Putin because then I'm going to be thrown off a balcony. So there is that possibility. All right. I am John Aravosis. You're listening to the Aravosis Report. I am a very smart person. Who does that sound like? The Aravosis Report. This is my daily show, Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, U.S., where we talk about the latest news from Ukraine, and then we do question and answer. I'm going to switch over to doing Q&A now. Thank you, Coeur de Leon, for that. We can go, and I'll go a little bit over because the news went a little long today. I do want to show you one last thing. I've got my Discord as well that you can find me on. It's discord.aravosis.com. Thank you, Elle, right before we go here. My Discord there we go. The whale. Now, that's cool because normally I can't hear thank you very much, by the way, James. Normally I can't hear the whale because when I've got my microphone plugged into my iPad, it cuts out all the sound. So I never get to hear the cool sounds that are associated with the gifts. The wave. That was pretty cool. I think you guys probably could have even heard that over on YouTube, probably, finally. So the Discord, let me show you really quick. So the current stuff we are auctioning on the Discord, 3 things. One is, that's right. One is a very cool, except I've got it in a bag now, very cool black shirt this was one of the shirts that the style that Zelensky was wearing at the beginning of the war. I've got it in a bag just to keep it safe. But remember, it was this sort of short sleeve black t-shirt that had this beautiful embroidered trident in the middle. I don't know that this is the same company, but it's very cool. This was made from a company in Odessa. The other 2 things I'm auctioning off this time, 2 of my favorite military patches from Ukraine. Here we go. This one I love because it's the police patch, and it says Polizia. And I'm going to show you something in a second. Polizia. I love this. This one I love. There we go. Right way. This one I love. Vlad, my friend in Ukraine, only sent me one of these, and I could have killed him because this is the patch that you see everywhere in Ukraine. Every single person in the military is wearing this patch. Drives me bonkers. I was like, Vlad, how could you only send me one? Let me, I'm going to show you really quick because I'm very excited about both of these. 1 second here. Where is this? Come on. Hang on. Just want to show you, and then we'll do the questions. Oops. Sorry, I've got so many things here. Here it is. Okay, so first I've got Zelensky, but you can see him wearing the little patch, right? So the little patch on his arm. So you can see Zelensky's shoulder there. And by the way, those are I'm not auctioning one off right now, but we've got a number of those shirts, the actual Zelensky combat shirts, and they've got little Velcro for putting the patch on, which is, it actually sticks right there. But this one I love. And the other one I discovered today, which cracked me up because I happened to put the police patch up as well. I'm auctioning both at the same time together because they both go on the shirt. Hold on. This one absolutely cracked me up. Hold on. Let's see if hopefully it's synchronized already. Oh, it's not synchronizing. Shoot, hold on, guys. I'm just going to take a picture of it and show you. This was from a New York Times article today, but it blew my mind because I had just put the shirt up for auction, and it's showing a Ukrainian policewoman wearing the patch. And you can see her. Now, you won't be able to tell on my camera. Oh, actually, here you can. On TikTok, you can, that it says Polizia. but it's literally the same patch. So that one I thought was kind of cool, that it's literally, any case, these are my two favorites because I love the stuff that's in Ukrainian, because to me, I've always liked stuff from foreign countries that's in a foreign language. I mean, it's the trident in the middle, but that's just coolest. But this one I love because, like I said, every Ukrainian military officer has this flag. And I just could have killed Vlad for not sending me more. So anyway, we're auctioning these off. 50% of the money goes to all of our humanitarian work in Ukraine, and 50% goes to support my work, which is doing all of this for free. So if you guys can go to the Discord, please help me out. Let's dive right in now. All right, let me check. Let me check here and go to the TikTok. TikTok. So yeah, go to the Q&A link in my profile on TikTok and you can put questions there. Hello, weird person. NATO have said today Russia is a terror state. There was some NATO body that said Russia is a terrorist state today. I did see that. I didn't see exactly who it was. Oh, Carlos, sorry, Carlos. I saved that, but I was in the middle of talking. Mom's dog is here. Kukla is right beneath me in the dog bed. She's been hanging out here all day under the bed with me. It's been very cute. Yes. And Sasha's here next to me. Here, I can like, oh, you can actually see Sasha there. There's Sasha on the bed. Burp, 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 burp. Here, for you guys too. Sasha's on the chair. Burp. But Mom's dog is underneath the table. Yes. So thank you for that, Carlos. Let me see here. What else we got? They don't care about the Iranian Revolution going on there. I mean, I do. We've done a lot. Actually, I've done a lot on the Iranian Revolution, although I will say this show is about Ukraine, but on my TikTok, I've done a lot on Iran. I haven't done anything recently. I've got to look again and do more because it's still going on, and there have been some amazing videos. Let me see real quick. I think I had downloaded a video a few days ago that I was going to put on TikTok, and I forgot, and I didn't. But let me see if I've got it, because I can show you guys right now. But that person raises a good point, because I don't want us to forget about the Iranian Revolution. It's a big deal. Let me see if I've still got this. It was a really neat... not sure I do, though. No. Nope, I don't. Oh, thank you. I saw the origami crane. Thank you, A. Tucker. Yeah, I don't have the video. Shoot, I thought I downloaded it. I had a wonderful video of a huge crowd in Iran. Huge crowd. Yeah. Mame is saying that, did you hear about what happened with the Iranian soccer team today at the World Cup? Yeah, they were singing the national, I think they had their arms around each other, and they were playing the Iranian national anthem, and the Iranian troops didn't sing it, and they're supposed to sing it. And they had their arms around each other and remained silent. And apparently a lot of other Iranian sports teams have done this, but to do it at the World Cup has to be the biggest thing ever. I mean, right? I mean, in America, that's not the biggest sports event ever, but in the World Cup is the biggest sport event. So that's a big deal. Yeah, that was amazing. That was absolutely amazing. Yeah, I saw that, Ben. Ben is asking about Zelensky. Zelensky was asking today for NATO to protect the nuclear plants because the Russians keep bombing them. You know, I saw one analyst who kind of whined, which annoyed me, and was saying, well, you know, if NATO protects the nuclear plants, the Russians are there, and if they start fighting, then it's World War III. And, you know, I swear to God, every time somebody in the West says World War III, you know, a Russian angel gets its wings. I mean, every single time we sit there and we publicly whine about how afraid we are of Russia, Putin is guaranteed to do 10 more bad things than he was going to do before. Now, that doesn't mean, I'm not sure how you would make these plants safe. I'm not quite sure how you could get away with it, okay, without risking war with Russia. But you don't publicly say, at the most, maybe you publicly say, you know, the problem is there's not really a practical way to do that. is what I might say. But I wouldn't say, oh, this idiot that was on Sky News, some British defense expert, and he's talking about how, oh, well, if we do that, we'd start fighting with Russia and it would be World War III. Again, you use that language and it means I'm afraid of Vladimir Putin. And mind you, we never sort of talk about, hey, if we did that and the Russians started fighting, for example, the counterpoint. Well, okay, if World War III is such a bad thing because the end of the world would be bad, the Russians know that too. So, devil's advocate here. If we go in and we protect the nuclear plant, Russia knows it would be World War III if they started fighting us. So Russia won't do it because it would be World War III. I mean, why doesn't that logic apply? Right? I mean, we're supposed to pretend that the Russians are crazy or something. The Russians aren't crazy. And sure, they approach war differently than we do, but they don't approach war differently in the sense, oh, was he a retired vice admiral? Well, he's still an idiot because you don't talk that way. And I'm sorry, Joe Biden has used that same language, and it's been just as dangerous that Biden has used it. You do not use language that suggests that you are afraid of the enemy because you just empower him every time you do it. Again, if I were Putin, every time I heard that, I would then do something else that risks World War III just to make the Americans back out even more, Edwin's being mean. Oh, well, Edwin. Barry Knightley, thank you very much for the gift and the question. Has there been any more interference with the grain ships? Haven't heard anything lately. No. They had renewed the deal temporarily, and I'm forgetting now. Oh, thank you for that, Annie. I always like the C at the bottom. Now I'm forgetting because they had renewed it for a few weeks, but then I thought they renewed it for several months now because the grain deal was up, I think, November 20th, which was yesterday. I'm pretty sure. 120 days? Okay, so it was. I was going to say, I thought they renewed it for 3 or 4 months. So I am correct. But they didn't yet renew it for the year. That was the deal. Yeah, but that's still a big deal that they renewed it for that period of time. That's great. Okay, 3 months. That's what I was thinking. I was going to say, because initially they renewed it, but it only was going to be a few weeks until, I think it was yesterday, that the deal was going to expire. And it was several days ago that they announced it was going for another 3 or 4 months. Okay, so that's what it is. Yeah. No. And not harassing the ships at all, apparently. Marion, my friend with the hard questions. How are Russian soldiers digging into the positions in the east, south of Ukraine expected to survive the winter? Will they get supplies? Will they steal from Ukrainians the little bit they have? Will they desert and go home? I mean, the basis of Marion's question is that thank you for the heart there, is that Russian logistics are terrible. By logistics, I mean supplies. Just like that Russian woman was saying to whoever it was, the Washington Post, her husband gets sent over there. He gets dropped off. No winter clothing at all. No winter uniforms, which means he's not getting a winter jacket. He's getting nothing. No boots. I mean, it's Ukraine in the winter. It's snow. It's like going to Chicago or Minneapolis in the winter. I mean, or Norway in the winter. Like no boots. That's insane. And no food and water. All of that is logistics. I mean, logistics is going to be giving them the supplies they need of like clothing and everything, because also your socks will run out. No winter socks. But food and water is logistics. Weapons, armaments, right? You run out of artillery, you run out of bullets for your gun, logistics. The Russians suck at it, and their troops in Ukraine aren't getting it. I mean, we knew this from the beginning of the war. Remember, the Ukrainians were blowing up that long, 40-mile-long caravan that was bringing supplies and didn't. So the thought was when Putin was announcing this new call-up of 300,000 troops, right? And now it looks like they did a little over 200,000 and then called it off, which was great. They called it off because they already had more than enough that they needed. The experts were saying that it actually was probably they had more than enough than they could handle because the logistics is so bad on the Russian end, so that the Russians couldn't handle feeding them, getting them armed, getting them, clothes. All I can say is from what we see, okay, these guys aren't getting winter clothes, so that's going to be horrific. Now, mind you, what Marion's saying too is they're digging in. They're digging in in the Russian troops are digging in for the winter, but also digging in to stop a Ukrainian counterattack. For example, here, Crimea, along the Crimean border, Crimea with the rest of Ukraine. Okay, they're digging in here. They're digging in around Mariupol because that's a strategic city that the Russians don't want to lose. They're also digging in over here in eastern Ukraine as well in a couple different places. The problem is they don't have anywhere to stay warm. What the Russians have been doing is they have been moving into people's homes. So when Ukrainians evacuate, the Russians move in. Okay, so that's been happening. But yeah, they're not going to have food. They're not going to have clothes. No, it's going to be the last little anecdote I'll say is I remember at the beginning of the war, some of the intercepted Russian communications. And mind you, the Russians invaded February 24th. Okay, so this was still midwinter in Ukraine. And one of the communications that will stick in my head was a Russian soldier calling home and saying, we've got 300 men in my unit or whatever it is. And 150 of them have frostbite on their feet. Okay, 150 have frostbite on their feet. The doctor said there's nothing he can do about it. He has nothing to treat frostbite. He has bandages so he could bandage their feet, but he doesn't have enough bandages for all the men. I mean, it was just a joke. They had nothing to do. And imagine frostbite. So no, these guys are going to get frostbite. They're going to freeze their asses off. One of the other advantages the Ukrainians did was the Ukrainians would fly drones at night in the winter because the Russian troops were freezing. They would have to put their they would stay in their tanks and stuff with the engine running to make it warm for them. And the Ukrainian drones would go at night with thermal imaging. And I saw some of the video. You literally are looking at just, it's a forest at night. Everything's black. You're seeing a little bit of something from the sky. And then you see literally like something out of a movie, this square that is bright shining at you. And it's a tank that's heating, and they just blew it up. I mean, at this point, this drone called in an artillery strike on the tank. But yeah, no, I think you're right. That's actually what will be interesting with that, Marion, is because everyone keeps saying the war is going to freeze, meaning it may not be a lot of progress over the winter months. But what people are forgetting is to what degree are the Russian troops going to be just screwed because of the weather and because they're not going to have the supplies, they're not going to have the food. The final thing I read too was over winter in general, I forget if they call it the golden hour or what, but basically the first hour after you are critically injured in warfare is the most important for saving your life. After that hour, your chances of surviving go down a lot. And the Russians have already had bad figures because the data has been bad for the Russians because they weren't providing enough surgical units, medical units, etc. But they were saying in winter, the survival rate goes down significantly in that first hour because of the cold and the conditions. So basically, you're going to have people, it is called the golden hour. Okay, that's what I thought. You're going to have people that are being injured, Russian troops, and they're injured in a military that doesn't care about their troops, a military that leaves their troops behind, that leaves them dead, or in this case, drops them off in the middle of the Ukrainian front and says, bye, whatever. And you're going to have somebody who's seriously injured, and they're not going to care about helping this guy, which means an even better chance of the guy dying. Yeah. No, it's horrible. Who was that? Oh, Barry, I did get that. Okay, good. I thought I missed you there, Barry. We'll do a few more questions because I know the substance went long, even though I thought I didn't have that many notes. Let me see here. Ben, thank you. Actually, I'll reset really quick. I am John Aravosis. This is the Aravosis Report. This is my nightly show talking about the latest news from Ukraine. I am in Chicago for the next 6 weeks. Normally, I'm broadcasting from Washington, D.C., but visiting elderly Ma out here. I'm going to work for here till New Year's. I always say, thus the paneling. But we're in the part of the show now where I take your questions and we just discuss, because also a lot of you guys know a lot of this stuff too. So I'm always interested in what feedback you guys have. Best thing you can do to help on TikTok, please do click the follow button. Very important, very appreciative, because I do post news throughout the day as well on TikTok, on YouTube, and everywhere else. Please subscribe there and keep the gifts coming, because I am doing this for free as independent media, and your guys' gifts are what keep me going. So thank you. Ben is saying, did you see the Ukrainian general who has predicted the war would be over by spring? Yes. Do you think that's possible? No. The only thing, I know who Zena Solo is, of course. Yep. The only thing is, under normal circumstances, I don't see the war ending. I don't know how it would end. I guess it would have been interesting to see how this general was predicting it. Like, for example, it's possible the Russian troops just collapse. I mean, the same kind of collapse you had in eastern Ukraine. Remember when the Ukrainians had their blitz, right? East of Kharkiv, and they just pushed the Russians back a large amount through this area. And it was just like boom, 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 because the Russian troops were just collapsing. I mean, they didn't know what to do. They were running like hell. I mean, they were trying to get their butts out of there as fast as they could, right? So you could have something like that. I don't know whether anybody's predicting it. General Hertling, who I like a lot, who's a former American general. He was our in command of the U.S. Army in Europe. And Hertling had said at the beginning of the war that he wasn't predicting it anytime soon, but he could see a situation where the Russian army literally starts to fall apart and collapse because of all these problems, right? Because of the leadership problems, because of the deaths. Now, especially with these new guys there, these new guys who have no training. I mean, they don't have, some of them I think didn't have weapons, or the weapons they're given, we've seen the pictures. The weapons they've been given were rusted things that looked like they came from World War II, but rusty guns. They're not getting food and water. Imagine what these guys are doing. I mean, their morale is going to be terrible. And are they going to really hang out? I mean, and add, like, what's the typical low temperature? What's the typical low temperature in Ukraine? I was trying to look, in other words, like a typical Kharkiv. Let's see what this says. What's the average temperature in Kharkiv, Ukraine in January? Okay, perfect. Let me see here. Kharkiv. Let's open it up. Wow. The average temperature high is 20. This is Fahrenheit. 24 degrees Fahrenheit high. This is Eastern Ukraine. 11 degree low, but 24 is the high. Oh my God. February of Kharkiv last year was negative 20 C. Oh my God. Convert 24 Fahrenheit to Celsius. So negative 4 C is negative 4.4 is the high in January. Convert 11 Fahrenheit to Celsius. Negative 12 C is the low. Okay. And like somebody was saying here, it got to negative 20. Imagine that happening, and you are some guy. Exactly. That's like Michigan. That's like Chicago or Michigan. You are some guy who was forced to conscript, right? You didn't want to be there. Right. They didn't give you gloves and boots. They didn't give you a winter jacket. I mean, it's funny. Like, I've got my down coat that I've got. Oh, sorry, dog. Jimmy is. Oh, you know what? Oh, I almost had you. I was going to pick up the dog to show you her, and she ran away. She hates getting picked up. But yeah, imagine you don't even, that temperature. I mean, let me tell you, growing up in Chicago, those temperatures suck. Those temperatures absolutely suck. Okay. But imagine not having a jacket for it, and you need real winter clothes. I mean, again, it's like going skiing, but it's like going skiing in really horrible weather because you're out there all day long. Oh, I can't even. Yeah. So no, that's a good question then. Like what actually, and that, you know what, Ben, that's a nice confluence of your question and Marion's question. of what's going to happen to these troops being out there all winter. I mean, the new guys, what, you want to go in mom's closet? All right. I never know why. She likes to go into mom's closet for a while and then she comes back. It's like, okay, whatever. But yeah, those guys are not going to be, hell, if those guys, I'd be like, surrender now, surrender now. Oh yeah, Marion, you did have a follow-up. Hang on a sec. I did see that. There it is. Yeah. Thanks, Roshan. I did. I clicked it to save it and then forgot to actually pull it up. What's your take on the New York Times circulating the videos alleged Ukrainian war crimes with captured Russian soldiers? So the New York Times story was kind of goofy on this. I saw one of the military analysts I like analyzing the New York Times story, and it's news, but there weren't enough facts. And by the New York Times even reporting on it, I don't know. Yeah, that's true, Roshan. I'll mention that one last time because I'll do one last pitch for the fundraiser. Basically, there's video, and I will not watch videos like this, but there's video showing 10 or 11 Russian prisoners of war, and one of them picks up a gun, and I don't know how he still had a gun, and I guess points it at the Ukrainian troops, and all I know is the next thing is all the Russians are dead. Now, the thing is that, and the Times does say all of this, the Russians are calling it a war crime. The Ukrainians originally shared the video because they were, they didn't think it was a war crime. I'm listening to my dog bark in the other room now. What one of the military experts pointed out was, he goes, what I saw in the video was a prisoner of war themselves committing a war crime, because I guess, you're not quite allowed to do that. Oh, the dog's got to go out. We're going to have to end this shortly. All right. 1 second, Sash. Oh, God. She's at the door giving me the sign. But we don't know that basically the Russian soldier started the whole thing. The Russian soldier starts shooting, and who knows what the other Russian troops are now doing. Maybe it's their moment for them all to jump at the Ukrainians, and the Ukrainians open fire on all of them, and they're all dead. We don't know, right? But it's a little, the New York Times, what bothers me is the New York Times story, I read it, was kind of vague on it and still made it sound like a war crime. And they should have interviewed, I'm going to hang up right now because thank you, Pamela. Thank you. I'm a little afraid to keep this going on TikTok as I take the dog out because I'm not sure how TikTok's going to handle that. Okay, you know what? I've got to take the dog out. I'm willing to go a few more minutes if you guys are willing to wait a second. Yes? All right. Let me go, only because she's got to do. I fed her, which means she's got to really go out. All right. 1 second. Yes, the wave. I will come right back. Hang on, TikTok. 1 second. All right, Sasha, come here. Come on. No, that means she's got to go out. I'm still doing my thing, but there's no choice. Go. Yeah, no, that means she's going to go on your floor. All right, 1 moment. Okay, come on. All right. Jeez, it's like the dog leash, live television. You never know what you're going to get. So what needed to happen in the New York Times article was There he is. I got him. All right, I got him. Go block him now. I got him. Go block the little son of a bitch. Mods, the idiot on TikTok, get rid of him. So what the New York Times should have done, we're talking about this article of talking about, potential Ukrainian war crime, but maybe not. The Times should have talked to some experts that said, one, it is possible that this video shows Ukrainians executing Russian troops. Two, it is possible this video, it is possible, meaning reasonable possible, like it's not possible as in improbable. Both are equally possible that, hey, stop, get up here, get up here, Sasha, hey, get up here, hey, they're fighting, get up here, Sasha, get up here. Jesus Christ. Oh my God. Yeah, it's okay, Kukla. No, my dog being a total jerk to mom's dog. This is mom's dog. Oh my God. So mean. Mom's dog, kind of an idiot, but a very sweet dog. Here you are, Kukla. Okay. Oh my God. And Sasha just being a total jerk to her. So you get the experts saying, one, yeah, it's possible the Ukrainians opened fire and didn't open fire, that the Ukrainians executed Russian troops. It is equally possible that the Russian soldier opened fire, which we know he did, as a prisoner of war, which is illegal, and the Russian troops jumped up and took it as basically he said to them, I'm going to do something, and when I do, and he did, when I'm going to do something, and when I do, jump, okay? Get ready for the moment. You'll know when you see it. And this guy did, and all the Russian troops jumped and tried to jump the Ukrainians, and all they could do was shoot everybody. I know. There you go, Kukla. There you go. Kukla's a Maltese Bichon. That's what the New York Times should have done. The New York Times should have just had the guy, and maybe not say both equal. I don't know. I'm not sure what the potential chance is, but you get an expert. Oh, you want to go down? Oh, you just want me to hold? This one's funny. My dog doesn't like to be held. Mom's dog loves to be held. She'd be happy sitting here all night with me, just like, so bad. In any case, so that was the problem with the New York Times. Yeah, they should have made it much more clear than they did. So that's a problem. Yep. Oh, all right, guys. Oh my God. No, mine gets jealous. We come to mom's place. Mine just gets, hi, don't you lick my face. And mine just gets so horribly jealous, and it's so obnoxious. So obnoxious. Yeah. What do you think? Thank you there, Gawky and Marcy. Anyway, well, my dog is now laying down on the chair next to me, so she knows what's going on, but I do this to her occasionally because she was starting a fight, and I want her to, well, see, and that's a possibility that the third Russian threw a grenade, which caused the casualties. It might have. Yeah. We can, all right, putting Kukla down. Kukla, we're going to go down. All right. There you go. Oh boy. We can go for a few. I'll go for a little bit to Discord. Yeah, we'll go a little bit to Discord. Let me tell you really quick. The Brazilians are weighing in. Thank you for the pause. I'll tell you really quick. I do have it. I opened it up just for now. I think I made it live again. Let me see. We were doing a fundraiser, and we got about half the money we needed, which is okay. Yeah, I got it live, which was okay. Not enough, but it was okay. Raising money for some Ukrainian troops at the front who do counter-sabotage. And by that, I mean that and I'll look at my notes for the recap, they hunt down Russian sabotage teams that sneak into Ukraine to blow things up. And these Ukrainian troops hunt them down. Now, they need a new 4x4 to do their work, but what these guys also do, which is the reason we are helping them, they also provide security for Kharkovu Mir which is the nonprofit that we have been raising money for since the war started. This is the nonprofit that provides, I always say Meals on Wheels, but they do more than that. They provide meals to people in need. Thank you, Ray Cray. They just went to some local towns using actually the revenue from the auctions we've been having. Or in part at least, our auctions helped. They went to a number of small towns and were providing them in eastern Ukraine, providing them with packets of sundries, shower stuff. So deodorant, shampoo, warm winter socks were included as well, stockings. And this charity has been doing all this kind of work. We've been helping them, but they do a lot of work on their own. So these guys also provide security for them because these guys are going into really scary areas that maybe have been liberated, but they're not fully under Ukrainian control yet. Like the Russians have left, but the Ukrainians still haven't been able to make it safe. So these guys need security with the military to go in and provide the charity work they do. So anyway, these troops need a 4x4. We found a used one for, it's a little under $4,000. Basically, it comes to $4,100 with the exchange rate, and that's what we need. And we've raised about $2,000. Thank you, Great CFI. I figured I would just leave it up for tonight and tell you guys, any extra you can give would be great. It's about, Vlad said it's about $4,000 total that they need. He said it's a little under $3,000, but because of the exchange rate and everything they need $4,100. Thank you, Tom. So if you guys can help, anything that gets them closer still helps. They're just going to have to see if they can raise the rest of the money elsewhere, but we're going to at least give them this down payment. If you can go, don't use my own PayPal, but Vlad's in your default PayPal. That's very funny, Coach. Thank you, Brandon Moore. You can on TikTok, just go to the address bar in my profile, click it, and you'll see the very first thing that comes up. It's a Linktree link. The very first thing that comes up gives Vlad's PayPal address. Just PayPal directly to Vlad. 100% of the money. Vlad is not a charity, so you are not getting a deduction. He's a Ukrainian volunteer. He's a friend of mine who we've been doing all sorts of this fundraising work with, but Vlad is a volunteer. He's our liaison to Kharkov Mir. And Kharkov Mir reached out to Vlad and said, we need this money to help these guys. Can you guys raise some? So that's what we're doing. So Vlad's our guy. Like I said, been working with him now for 8 months and lots of charity. It's all going through Vlad. He's not taking it. We put up videos showing the results of the work we've been doing. So I trust, that's all I can tell you. I trust Vlad. He's been great. And he's our liaison with the charity anyway. And the charity then has done videos thanking us for the money and that we've provided. So clearly it's getting there. There you go. And for you guys over there, easiest way, honestly, is just aravosis.com, which will take you to my Linktree. So for you guys all, YouTube, etc. And for you guys too, you can always do aravosis.com as well. I mean, I've got a ton of videos. I have nothing right here. I've got a lot of videos. Actually, you know what? If you go to my TikTok, you're going to see, well, I took down, I can put it back up. I took down the video asking for help. I can put it back up really quick. I took it down because I didn't want people to keep donating, but then I thought, okay, we can do, hang on, we can do one last, I'll put it up for tonight and then I'll take it down tomorrow. Hold on, everyone. There we go. But it includes a picture of the car and everything because it's at a used, they're buying it used, of course. But yeah, I mean, we raised, the field hospital. Oh, that's right. The field hospital is already taken down. That's good. But we've got the rocket stoves being delivered. Some of the other stuff we did.
41 rocket stoves to let Ukrainians cook foods that are actually using.
These were the rocket stoves that we had made and delivered. Sorry, I got it fast forwarding. That's why it's doing the funny noise. But he's making these basically little stoves that you put wood in. The little stove is a little black thing on the wood there. And this was one of the women coming to say, the woman coming to say thank you with her hand on the stove. And then this other guy is showing cooking potatoes, which is neat. If you look closely, it says buy at Aravosis on the side. Vlad did that. They actually had them carve the name of But you see at Aravosa, which I thought was kind of cute. Anyway,
Everybody thinks
we've got a number of the videos up for that. So there you go. In any case, all right, I will do the quick recap and then let's go, guys, because I've also got to go eat. Ukraine announced an operation is underway to liberate. Okay, seriously? Stop. Ukraine announced an operation is underway to liberate the Kinburn Spit in Mykolaiv Oblast. The Russians hit Ukrainian civilian infrastructure again over the weekend. Polish prosecutors won't allow Ukraine to join the investigation of the missile blast. Germany is giving Poland Patriot missiles to add to its defenses on the Polish border with Ukraine. Moscow has quietly reached an agreement with Tehran to begin manufacturing hundreds of unmanned drones on Russian soil. Russia already lost most of the European oil market even before sanctions kick in December 5th. Get up here. Okay, she's growling at mom's dog. I'll hold her. We then talked about the oil price cap is going into effect probably on Wednesday that NATO, the European countries in America are going to be implementing. The Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant came under some of the worst shelling in months this weekend. Via the Washington Post, the Kremlin said Monday that its goal is not regime change in Ukraine. And then I went in detail about a Washington Post article. Hello, you. About a Washington Post article that, see, she hates being held. She's looking down like, let me down. A Washington Post article talking about how Russian military families are getting fed up and are starting to speak up against the war, which is very interesting. Sasha's being nice. Sasha was not being nice. That's why I picked her up. All right, guys, let me go. You know what? Let me skip the Discord tonight, guys, because it's already 22 after. I'll do a Discord tomorrow night, okay? But I was going to come hang a bit, but it's already 22 after now, which is like, normally I end at 6, or at the hour, but I tried to go late because I had stopped. It was late for me to do the question. So let me do that because we got to make food inside. I'm starving. All right. Thank you so much, guys. And tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern, remember, join us again, and we will continue the conversation. And thank you for the gifts, and thank you, as always, for the moderators doing God's work, trying to keep the crazies. But yes, we'll definitely do a Discord hangout tomorrow. I mean, I'll check in Discord anyway. You know that. I'll check in tonight. I check in every day, multiple times a day, just to see what you guys are writing and stuff. But we'll do the hangout tomorrow. All right. Thanks, guys. You all, good night.